The first scream cuts through the spawn room like a blade, and it is my name in a voice I do not recognize. The walls ripple as if the code is breathing, then text rips across my vision. You were never meant to be here. Evan said, who's running this instance? Pixels shear from the ceiling and drift like burning snow. Cade's sigil flashes in the upper skybox, a crown of rotating thorns. Lena said, stay calm, it's only lag. The floor fractures into hex panels that tilt and slide. Mara grabs my sleeve and the fabric registers as real, warm, wrong. A second scream erupts from the chat feed with no sender. I pull my visor focus tighter, but the room keeps zooming without my input. Echo steps from a mirror that was never there. Echo said, you wrote this door when you begged to disappear. Gravity misfires and our avatars lurch. The clock HUD blinks null. Cade said, welcome to the tier you tried to skip. My inventory empties itself and spills lights like coins. A final line etches over everything you cannot log out while observed. The world inhales. The lights die. The darkness hums like a power line, and then a low horizon of light returns, a false dawn cast by server racks beyond the glass. I test my hands and the gloves respond a beat late. Mara said, we need an exit shard. Lena pings a route that loops back into itself like a trap. L. Cade's sigil keeps orbit in the skybox, small and patient, as if timing our fear. Echo lingers at the mirror seam, studying me the way a diver studies thin ice. Evan said, why can it see through my lockouts? The room answers with a ripple. Mara drags a diagnostics window into the air, and it blinks away as though swatted. Lena said, someone changed permissions mid-session. I taste metal, a phantom bleed from my bitten lip back home. The chat fills with spectators who are not present. An old emote waves, and then cries. Echo said, you asked the world to notice you. It listened too hard. I tried to laugh, but the sound edits itself into silence. The false dawn dims. The hum climbs. The floor steadies and the door geometry renders in, but its hinges are decorative and its lock is painted on. Mara said if we spoof a shard, we might hitch a ride. Lena's map shivers and then reorders itself to hide the exits. Echo walks a slow circle around me, counting steps that I cannot hear. Cade said, choose quickly. Delay has a price. The price arrives as latency spikes that tug my balance. I think of the messages I never answered, and the calls I ignored. Evan said, this is punishment dressed as a tutorial. The room stretches, then compresses, like breath held too long. Mara reaches for my shoulder, and the glove translates the comfort as pressure, cold and exact. Lena said, I have one back door. It burns the inventory. Echo stops at my spine like a shadow returning to its owner. I nod, and the nod feels borrowed. The door brightens but does not open. The tutorial smile hovers, too wide, and offers no steps. We try the back door and the inventory catches fire without heat, icons turning to ash that rises and writes warnings in the air. Mara said, it wants a sacrifice. Lena winces and hides it behind a smirk that does not hold. Cade's voice floods the room without source, sweet like a lullaby and edged like wire. Cade said, trade a name, gain away. Echo leans close enough that my reflection doubles inside his eyes. Evan said, he wants identity, not items. The ash forms letters that almost spell mine. I press both palms to my chest to feel the rhythm the suit insists I have. Mara squeezes my wrist until I remember the real pulse under the fake one. Lena said, we can fabricate a name. Echo whispers something I cannot repeat. The ash settles. The door waits like a straight answer I do not trust. The room returns to stillness that feels staged. The choice arrives not as courage, but as cornering. I step toward the door and the mirror follows, Echo gliding beside me like a tide. Cade said, name your price and the system will listen. Mara said, do not give what you can't reclaim. Lena pulls a small token from her belt, a shard carved with a laugh we once shared, and places it in my hand. It feels like weight and memory. Evan said, I will trade the lie that I am fine. The room tilts toward the word fine, as if it is heavy. Echo said, then the door will take a little less than everything. The hinges unpaint themselves. The lock exhales. We hold our breath the way children do before the dark. A final line crawls across the air. Payment accepted, subject under observation. I look up, and the skybox stares back with patient hunger. The door's edge glows. We step. The door seals behind us with a sigh, and the world rebuilds itself into a corridor too long for any architecture to hold. Lights hover without source, casting pale shadows that stretch farther than their owners. Evan said, this is not a map I know. Mara touches the wall and her hand sinks through a surface that feels liquid but leaves her dry. Lena said, we are off server. This is ghost space. The hum grows into a chant with no words, stitched from echoes of voices we half recognize. Ahead, a small figure steps into the glow. The innocent, untouched by fear, carries a sphere of laughter that warms the air. Evan said, who brought you here? The child does not answer, but the sphere pulses like a heartbeat. Echo said, not all arrivals are chosen. Cade's sigil flickers faintly even here, reminding us that nothing escapes its sight. The innocent stares at me, not accusing, not pleading, but trusting. That trust feels heavier than any chain. The innocent walks ahead, and the corridor shortens as if bending to her will. Mara whispers, she doesn't belong in this tier. Lena shakes her head and mutters, she shouldn't even have access keys. Evan said, then why is she here? Echo trails behind the child, movements perfectly timed, like a shadow rehearsed too many times. The chant rises, forming syllables that almost spell names we know but refuse to say aloud. Cade said, you asked for hope, here it is. The words taste bitter, laced with mockery. The innocent lifts the sphere and laughter echoes, clean and bright, cutting the chant for a moment. But the walls flinch as if the sound burns. Evan said, hope is a weapon now. Mara touches my arm to keep me steady. Lena watches the walls recoil, eyes narrowed, calculating. The innocent looks back once, her smile trembling, as though she senses the cost of what she carries. The sphere brightens until the chant collapses into static, and for a moment silence reigns. Then the shadow appears, stepping from Evan's outline as if peeled from his own skin. Echo stiffens, but the shadow carries his same voice bent through distortion. Shadow said, you are not what you pretend to be. Evan's stomach tightens as though truth is a hand closing around it. Mara said, ignore it, it's a mirror trick. Lena mutters, mirrors only show what exists. The innocent clutches the sphere tighter, her knuckles pale. Cade's sigil glows red now, savoring the fracture. Evan said, if you are me, then why do you stand against me? The shadow tilts its head and smiles with Evan's smile but sharper. Because you would rather wear lies than scars, it answers. The silence following is worse than screams, because it feels true. The shadow circles me, tracing lines of light that sting like confessions. Mara says, step away from it. But the creature laughs in my own voice. Lena runs a diagnostic spell, but her code disintegrates mid-air. Echo finally moves, interposing himself between me and the shadow, his form flickering as though cost is being paid. Cade said, every guard must fall to let truth pass. Evan said, truth without mercy is cruelty. The innocent holds the sphere out, and for the first time her smile fades. She whispers, it hurts when you lie. The words cut deeper than any blade. The corridor trembles, lights bursting one by one, until darkness presses close like a mouth waiting to swallow. Darkness wins for a breath, then the sphere flares like a star, pushing walls back to shape. The innocent trembles, voice small, it takes part of me each time. Evan said, stop, Don't burn yourself for us. Mara grips my shoulder and growls, we cannot protect her here. Lena whispers, this is leverage, not rescue. Echo shakes, body fragmenting into shards but holds position. The shadow hisses, even light lies when it chooses what to reveal. Cade said, sacrifice is the oldest code. Evan feels his pulse match the sphere's rhythm, drawn toward its burn. The innocent collapses to her knees, sphere dimming but alive. I kneel with her, my hands hovering but afraid to touch. Her trust remains, fragile and unbroken. That trust might yet kill us. The corridor thins into a causeway above an ocean of code, each wave a scroll of names that never load. A wind rises that is not weather but processing heat. Evan said, this place remembers us. Mara watches the waves and shivers as reflections show faces we left behind. Lena said, memory is currency here. Echo stands at the rail, gaze fixed on the horizon where the sky splits into grids. Cade said, welcome to provenance. The ocean answers by folding upward like a book, pages of logs exposing our footsteps. The innocent clutches her fading sphere and whispers, they wrote me wrong. Evan said, then we rewrite you. The book slams and the bridge quakes. Under our feet, a path lights with entries marked debt. Echo does not move. The gridline sun goes dim. The causeway forks into 3 lanes, labeled mercy, truth, and speed, none leading to safety. Mara said, speed looks like a trap. Lena traces truth and flinches as the line sparks. Evan said, mercy takes something we can't replace. Echo lifts a hand, and all 3 signs blur into one word, we refuse to read. Cade said, selection is confession. The innocent steps toward truth, steady despite the tremor in her fingers. I follow because she should not walk alone. Mara said, if we burn here, we burn together. Lena nods once, calculation resolved into courage. The lane rises, becomes a blade road, and the air rings. Our shadows fall forward, long and thin, like answers stretched too far. The blade road tests us with questions that sound like doors. Voice said, what did you steal to be seen? Evan said, time from my future. The surface flashes our worst moments as if they are advertisements. Mara said, turn your face, it feeds on shame. Lena fires scripts like flares, each burning out against invisible permissions. Echo walks beside me and hums a tune I used to play on a cracked phone, and the road stutters. Cade said nothing, resists the record. The innocent raises her sphere and its light hides one image, a tiny mercy we do not deserve. My chest loosens, then tightens as a new scene loads. One I prayed, stayed buried. The road demands payment. Payment arrives as a figure we know too well. The masked ally drops their hood, and the face is Lena's brother from the city we never mention, rendered perfect and cruel. He smiles with borrowed kindness. Mara said, false skins are cheap. He answers with a cut to her arm that drains color, but not blood. Lena said, you are not real, and her voice breaks on the last word. Cade said, he is as real as need. Evan steps forward and feels the road thin to razor. Echo reaches to stop me, but stops short, as if bound by design. The innocent whispers, he wants what you hide. The masked ally extends a hand, offering an exit shaped like surrender. I refuse the hand and the road sings with tension that can cut bone. The masked ally laughs and releases a swarm of permissions that eat our names letter by letter. Mara said, hold your ground. Lena drags code from her own history and seeds a firewall that smells like summer rain. Echo said, stand behind me, and his body becomes a mirror that reflects only what we can bear. Cade said, mercy debts compound. The innocent steps between us and the swarm, sphere bright again, and each permission melts into harmless light. The road widens. The masked ally frowns, then cracks, revealing nothing underneath but need. Evan said, we walk. We walk. The blade dulls. The ocean lifts us with a quiet we have not earned. The road dissolves behind us, and the ocean drains until we stand on cracked ground that smells like burnt circuits. Towers rise, skeletal and jagged, each one humming with voices harvested from players who never returned. Evan said, "This is the graveyard of sessions." Mara scans the monoliths, her eyes darting as if she expects her own name carved into one. Lena said, "They archive pain to keep the system alive." Echo kneels, palm pressed against the floor, and his outline flickers. Cade said, "Every step you take is written twice, once in you, once in here." The innocent clutches her dim sphere closer, her breath shallow as she reads a name she recognizes. I feel weight crash against my chest, for mine is etched too, glowing faintly, a reminder that I was always meant to be buried in this place. We move deeper and the towers pulse with light, broadcasting fragments of screams. Mara covers her ears, though no sound should reach. Lena said, "These echoes were coded into permanence." Evan said, "Then, they never let go of the loss." Echo rises, his face pale, more human than ever, and whispers, "I remember being one of them." The innocent stumbles as her sphere flickers, projecting shadows of children who never logged out. Cade said, "The archives feed on longing, and you brought plenty." I swallow hard, fighting the urge to erase my own name glowing in the stone. Mara said, "We can't stay or we etch next." The storm overhead cracks lightning, painting the towers in terrible beauty. The ground splits as a platform rises, carrying a throne of wires where Cade's avatar finally manifests in full. He is immense, sculpted from data fire, and his grin feels carved into us. Cade said, "You walk graves yet, pretend you are alive." Evan steps forward, rage cracking through his fear. Evan said, "You only own what we let you take." Mara steadies him with a glance that says, "Don't break yet." Lena mutters code under her breath, preparing something desperate. Echo trembles, torn between standing guard and fleeing. The innocent whispers, "He feeds on the silence you keep inside." Cade laughs, a sound like servers overheating, and the towers bend toward him as if bowing. The battlefield has chosen its master. Cade extends one hand and the towers collapse into weapons of memory, each shard a blade carved from someone's humiliation. Evan braces, his own shame flashing before him. Mara said, "He used what hurts most." Lena launches her script, but it burns out in a hiss of sparks. Echo intercepts the first blade, his body glitching violently, pieces of his form scattering like shattered glass. The innocent screams, the sphere blazing bright for the first time, pushing one shard away. Cade said, "Your light only delays debt." Evan said, "Then I'll spend every ounce of myself before I let you carve her name." The battlefield glows with weapons waiting, and we are outnumbered by our own pasts. The shards whirl, circling like predators, and time bends with their spin. Mara pulls me back, her grip iron. Lena said, "We must anchor ourselves or dissolve." Echo's body collapses into fragments that hover but refuse to vanish, his sacrifice holding a space open. The innocent kneels, sphere dimming again, her tiny frame shuddering with exhaustion. Evan said, "I won't let him write us as ruins." Cade's voice booms, "Every ruin is just a story told too late." Mara said, "Then we tell it now." Together we brace, all shadows and light converging. The shards dive, the storm roars, and we meet the attack with a courage scraped raw from everything we've lost. The storm pauses as if held by a hand, and the battlefield exhales a heat that tastes like copper and dust. The shards hang in a slow ring, listening for what we will confess. Echo steadies, his fragments knitting with a sound like rain on tin. Mara said, "If we keep fighting ghosts, we forget who started this." Lena lowers her hands and lets the fizzled code drift away like ash. Cade said, "Truth is the shortest path to surrender." The ground opens a little theater of light where files scroll with my earliest login. Evan said, "I asked for a world that would not laugh at me." The script replies with a mirror of nights I hid behind the visor to feel tall. The innocent steps close, and lays the sphere near my heart, so its warmth finds bone. Echo said, "You wrote me to stand where you could not stand." The words land with a weight that feels like home and judgment at once. Ow. The sky tears to reveal a window into my apartment, a cheap desk, and a plant that refuses to die. My headset lies where I left it, but the chair rocks as if someone just stood. Mara said, "It is pulling your outside in." Lena flinches when a hospital hallway flickers over her shoulder, white light humming. Cade said, "Consequences belong to both rooms." The innocent stares at the window and whispers, "They are waiting for you to fail." Echo steps between me and the view like the doorway guard he was born to be. Evan said, "If I log out now, I leave you to him." The window brightens with a message I wrote and never sent. It reads like a plea and like a dare. Mara squeezes my hand and sets her jaw. We turn our backs on the open world that claims it loves us. The plaza dims to a circle where decisions echo louder than orders. Cade said, "Choose which one walks, and I will let the rest crawl home." Mara's breath stutters, then steadies into a soldier's rhythm. Lena said, "He lies, but the math of harm is real." Echo looks at me with eyes I recognize as my own fear dressed in courage. The innocent says nothing, only touches the sphere until it hums like a lullaby. Evan said, "No one gets traded." Cade laughs and releases a tally of our debts across the sky, each line a mercy we stole. Mara steps forward and speaks in a voice that shakes. Mara said, "Take me if you must, but leave the child." The words scar the air and make the storm kneel. I reach for her, and the ground slides us apart like magnets with opposite fate. Cade tilts his head, and the plaza answers by birthing a stage of memories shaped like tenderness. It shows the first time Mara dragged me out to watch sunrise between skyscrapers made of glass and hope. Mara said, "You kept that sun alive when I forgot how." Lena looks away as if trespassing on a private prayer. Echo said, "Love is a firewall until it becomes a lure." The stage shifts to a goodbye we planned and never used. My mouth remembers the promises I made and failed to cash. The innocent whispers, "Do not trade light for proof." I nod, and the stage dissolves into a sheet of rain that hides our faces. Cade said, "Sentiment is the cheapest lock." The cheap lock holds for one breath, and that breath saves us from drowning in our past. The rain clears, and the masked ally returns, wearing the face of Lena's brother with a smile that does not reach human. He holds a key shaped like Lena's signature, and the towers bow as locks awaken. Lena said, "You stole my gate." He shrugs, all charm sharpened to a point. Cade said, "Betrayal is just loyalty with a different address." The innocent steps back as the key points toward her name, forming on a blank slab. Echo bristles and light pours from the seams he cannot hide. Evan said, "You will not carve her." The masked ally touches the key to the slab, and the letters begin to smoke. Mara moves faster than fear and knocks his wrist wide, but the mark remains half-written. I plant myself over the stone and speak without shaking. Evan said, "Write me instead, and the system will choke on what I am." The world holds its breath to see if the code accepts the offer. The ground beneath us cracks, and the false horizon warps like a rip in fabric. The masked ally watches, his smile too wide, stretched over something unnatural. Evan said, "Enough of this illusion." Mara's fists are tight, but she stands still, steady. Lena whispers code, slicing through the air like a knife, but it's not enough. The code is alive here, alive and watching. Echo said, "It adapts. We cannot predict it." The innocent steps between us, her eyes wild and sharp. She says nothing, only raises her sphere, and a pulse of energy expands from her that freezes the cracks for a brief moment. Cade's sigil flares again, igniting the sky with a silent force. "You cannot rewrite fate," he says, his voice thick with certainty. "We know the truth now. This world was never meant to bend for us. The pulse from the innocent sphere fades but leaves a ring of stillness in the air. Cade steps forward, his presence commanding, like the weight of an ancient king. Cade said, "You fight because you fear the end, but I have no such fear." The air shimmers with the power of his voice. Evan said, "Fear of the end is fear of losing what matters." Lena stands taller now, her face hardening like stone. Echo's body flickers, glitching between fragments, and he moves closer to the innocent, guarding her. Mara said, "This isn't about survival anymore. It's about freedom." The masked ally watches silently, his gaze piercing. The towers loom closer, pressing in on us. I feel the weight of history in the air, ready to consume everything we've fought for. The towers pulse, and the ground shifts with the weight of reality collapsing. Mara lunges forward, but her steps are slowed by the thickening air. Evan said, "We need to push back, or this will consume us all." Lena begins to code frantically, fingers flying, but the data responds too slowly, like it's resisting her. Echo stands beside her, the faint glow of his energy field creating a protective barrier. Cade said, "You cannot change what is already written in the system." I step forward, knowing the truth of his words but unwilling to accept it. The innocent sphere grows brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat, and for a moment I feel hope pierce through the darkness. We are not done yet. The air cracks open like thunder, and the walls shimmer with the force of Cade's power. He stands tall, unyielding, and commands the code to bend to his will. Cade said, "Your defiance only tightens the noose." The sky tears open, revealing the true face of the system, an endless void filled with endless data. Evan said, "And yet we still fight, because we refuse to be erased." Mara clenches her jaw, stepping forward into the void, but Echo grabs her wrist. Lena says nothing, but her eyes are full of resolve. The innocent lifts the sphere high, a final act of defiance, and its light spreads out, pushing back the darkness. Cade falters for the first time, unsure of his control. The void recedes and silence reigns like the breath held too long. Cade's presence diminishes as the weight of his system slips away. Evan said, "We've fought this far. We're not letting it end like this." Mara steps forward, eyes clear, no longer looking over her shoulder. Lena said, "We rewrite what we must, but we don't let it define us." Echo falls silent, the final shard of his fragmented form solidifying into a whole, restored by the power of the sphere. The innocent looks at us, her sphere dimming but still glowing faintly, as if carrying all our hopes. The system trembles and the final line of code is written. Freedom, no longer a choice, but a birthright. The silence stretches like the edge of a dream, just before it slips away. The fractured sky above us shifts from harsh white to a soft violet, as if the world itself is taking a breath. We stand together, surrounded by the ruins of everything we've broken and rebuilt. Evan said, "We were supposed to die here, in the dark, alone." Mara looks back at the remains of the digital world, a bitter smile on her lips. Lena said, "We were supposed to be erased, but we're still here, and that's enough." The innocent holds her sphere, dim but steady, as if it's become a part of her. Echo said, "I've watched all of you change, each moment more than the last. I can't look away from the horizon. The scars of our journey are written in the air and the dirt beneath our feet. We didn't ask for this world, but it's the one we've made for ourselves." The storm behind us fades, but a new light rises in its place, and it's ours to claim. The world ahead is still, but the echoes of our actions ripple through it, forming the shape of our future. The innocent steps forward first, her small figure silhouetted against the rising light. Evan said, "We survived, but we'll never forget what it cost." Mara turns to face him, her expression soft but unyielding. Lena's eyes meet mine, and in them I see everything we fought for. Cade's presence, once all-consuming, fades like a fading star, leaving us with the silence of what we've chosen to carry. Echo said, "The world we've built can hold all of us if we choose to stay." The towers crumble slowly in the distance, as if time is finally catching up. The innocent stops at the edge of the broken path, and turns to us, waiting for the rest of us to catch up with the future we must create. As the first rays of true sunlight break the horizon, the ground beneath us shifts and heals, though the scars remain. The innocent places her sphere into the earth, and the light bends to it, as if acknowledging its weight. Evan said, "We fought with everything we had." Mara nods, her gaze lingering on the horizon, her expression a mixture of hope and exhaustion. Lena said, "And now, we move forward." Echoes form shimmers, solidifying into something more than an echo of the past. Cade's sigil fades, disappearing into the dawn like a ghost that never truly belonged. We stand together in the silence of a new beginning. The world before us is raw and unshaped, but it is ours to mold, ours to define. We take our first steps into the new world, a world that will be whatever we choose to make of it. The air is clean, untainted by the code that once ruled us. Evan said, "We don't need to be heroes, just people." Mara's voice is steady, and for the first time I hear no hesitation. Lena said, "We don't have to fix everything, just keep moving forward." The innocent walks beside us, her sphere now a guiding light, not a burden. Echo steps lightly, his form glowing with energy, steady but at peace. I feel the weight of everything that's been, and the promise of what might come. The road ahead is long, but for the first time, it feels like it's ours to walk. The final step is taken, and we are no longer bound by the system that once tried to own us. The innocent looks up at the sky, and for the first time I see her smile, unburdened and free. Evan said, "We don't belong to the code anymore." Mara said, "We belong to ourselves." Lena looks around, taking in the world we've reclaimed, the place we've earned. Echo stands beside her, a silent witness to all that has passed. Cade's presence has completely dissolved, as if his influence was never more than a shadow. I look up at the sky, and for the first time, it feels like home. The road ahead is not easy, but it is ours to travel, and it will lead to places we've never been before.